YouTube, today we're going to go over the Gmax, Centiskorch, Mamoswine, and Palkia team that I used for back-to-back battles. Let's get started and roll the episode. So why Gmax Centiskorch? Gmax Centiskorch is a Pokemon that I've been trying to use for quite a while. I think its max move is really interesting. However, it is really difficult to use because of the fact that it is 4 times weak to Rock. Charizard and Sun give it a lot of trouble, which is very common in this format. And Max Airstream, of course, one of the most common max moves out there, really does give Centiskorch some hard time, especially with its pretty low physical defense. So overall, it's really hard to use Gmax Centiskorch, especially with a lot of moves that it just gets hit by super effectively. So it is a pretty fragile Pokemon at times. But I really did want to try it out, especially since it could trap in Zacians, and it's a pretty decent mon against a few of the restricted. And that is how I started testing Gmax Centiskorch and seeing how viable it was. So how was the team formed? Well, it started off with Gmax Centiskorch, and I knew I was going to use Gmax Centiskorch, especially its Gmax move, to abuse the trapping that you have the ability, as well as the chip damage. And then I knew I wanted a restricted Pokemon that could take advantage of Centiskorch while also covering for a bit of its weaknesses. A big trouble of using Gmax Centiskorch, I feel like, is Landis-Fairy, a really difficult Pokemon to handle. So I like the idea of Palkia because Palkia can do really well against Landis-Fairy teams. And, you know, it really does help with Centiskorch. Centiskorch also can help Palkia, especially with play rough Zacians. I like having the idea of Centiskorch taking on the play rough Zacians to help free up the Palkia quite a bit there. So that is where I started with the 2. The next Pokemon I felt like that just really fit on the team was going to be the Grimmsnarl, because, of course, Grimmsnarl really good with Palkia or Dialga. It's also really fantastic with Gmax Centiskorch because of the screens. Screens can really help Gmax Centiskorch. While it's not really that bulky on the physical side, that's pretty good special bulk. I could just increase that even further with the screens, and it felt like it would be pretty good, especially since I'd be wearing them down with the chip damage from the max move, trapping them into unfavorable positions most of the time, and really just being able to outbulk them, and yeah, while doing that residual damage. So I really like the idea of Grimmsnarl. It also complemented the Palkia because I did have screens for the Palkia, as well as potential fake tears plays with the Palkia if I don't plan to Gmax the Centiskorch, and I really like that idea. So I think Grimmsnarl was a really flexible Pokemon on the team, and I really did like the idea of adding it to the core. So after I built the core, I went back and looked at Sage and Park's rank 1 Centiskorch team from quite a few series ago, and there were some pretty cool mons that I felt like Zacian had, and the team definitely did play different. Of course, it had the Yawn strategy with the Follow Me Togekiss, had Yawn Gastrodon, and definitely did play a bit differently, but the team I felt like was just really weak to stuff like Sun that you would commonly see in this format, and would be quite difficult to use some of the tools. But there were a few Pokemon that I really did enjoy, I think, with the Centiskorch that could really pair well with it. For instance, the Rillaboom and Mamoswine that Zacian had. I really like the idea of Rillaboom because of the fact that I feel like I'm really weak to Gmax Lapras, because of the fact that Palkia, of course, 4 times weak to Freeze Dry. I don't exactly do the most damage to it. So yeah, I really liked having Rillaboom to cover for bulky waters, especially that Lapras. And then Mamoswine I felt like was a pretty huge Pokemon here. It's another answer to Landis-Fairy, which is always really nice. And I think that's absolutely huge. Helps against Thundurus, which this team can a little bit struggle with. And yes, I really just like having a Mamoswine as a backup to Landis-Fairy, Thundurus, and Eternatus, which I felt like could be a little bit difficult. So I liked having Mamoswine on the team. And then the last Pokemon, I felt like I wanted something that could use Fake Tears stuff, because I had Fake Tears, but I only had Palkia on the team. So I was trying to figure out things that I could use Fake Tears with. And I thought about Zapdos, but the thing is, I already had 2 Pokemon I was pretty keen on Dynamaxing, which is going to be the Palkia and the Centiskorch most of the time. So I didn't want a Pokemon that usually goes for Dynamax, and that usually is Zapdos in most cases. So I felt like, you know, Thundurus is a pretty good special attacker. I think it fits on the team. Helps against Eliki, which I was still a little bit unsure of how the matchup would go because of the Electro stuff. But I felt like, yeah, Thundurus variant could help. It does decent against opposing Thundurus, which I felt like, you know, that could be a pretty big plus, and might help out against weather teams because of the fact that it is pretty strong with the Thunderbolt outspeeding Kyogre, Weather Ball to hit the Venusaurs in their own Sun matchup. So yeah, I ended up adding Thundurus variant, and that is how the 6 was formed. All right, let's go over the items, the movesets, and the EV spreads of the team. We have a Salt Vest Gmax Centiskorch with a White Smoke ability with Fire Lash, Leech Life, Giga Impact, and Power Up. So Gmax Centiskorch is a really interesting Pokemon, and I like the Assault Vest item because it has a pretty good special defense stat, and I really like the coverage that it has. I really wanted all 4 moves, so I felt like Assault Vest was a pretty good pairing, especially with the high base HP stat, and making Gmax Centiskorch even bulkier on the screens just seemed too tempting. So I really like having that Assault Vest item. The White Smoke ability, I thought about Flash Fire. It's a really good ability as well, but I felt like White Smoke was just way more important because even though I could absorb like Incineroar, for instance, Flare Blitz, which I felt like was really tempting, the ignoring the Intimidates, which is really nice, ignoring the stat drops from max moves, I felt like it was way too good to pass up. So I ended up choosing White Smoke overall. And then the moveset, Fire Lash, Leech Life, Giga Impact, and Power Whip. Fire Lash, of course, for the fire move. Leech Life for the recovery, strong Flutterby as well. The Giga Impact is where this is a little bit different. So I like the G-Max Centiskorch with the Inferno. It's really nice as you would be able to trap in Pokemon. But what do you do after you went for the first Inferno? The Fire Spin's going to still be around the same, basically. You could go for multiple Infernos, do a good amount of damage, but why not set up positions? I felt like, why not, like, since I have the Palkia, and Palkia, it's fast, base 100, but it's not the fastest thing in the world. What if I like max strike Pokemon in order to make them slower so Palkia could outspeed and come in and then pick up the knockout once they're weakened, which I felt like was really nice, especially with the trap. So that's why I really like the max strike option on the G-Max Centiskorch, and then Power Up for the coverage, which I felt was like really nice. So for the EV spread, I knew I wanted the G-Max Centiskorch to be bulky, so I wanted it all into max HP. I felt like it was pretty solid. And then I thought about how much attack do I need, and I felt like since I'm doing most of my damage through residual anyway, I don't need as much attack, but I still would like a good amount of attack. So I felt like 36 Adamant was pretty good. It gave me an extra stat point and still hits really hard, which I really did like. And then I wanted the rest into bulk, but I wanted to figure out my speed stat first. So I debated about quite a bit, and I decided I'm going to go at least faster than the Timid Max Speed Amoonguss, which hits a 90 speed stat. So I ended up going for 91. I would change this, I think, on an updated team. I would change the Centiskorch to have a 93 speed, outspeeding my Grimmsnarl as well. So I could Fire Lash and a Spirit Break if that really comes into play. Never really came into play, I think. It might have maybe came up once, potentially, but I felt like, yeah, this could be a little bit of a thing I could do in the future when I don't have the G-Max Centiskorch out and I'm just going for Fire Lashes. Definitely could be a viable play. So I would change that speed stat, but otherwise I felt like the bulk was pretty good. I wanted a lot of physical defense, of course, with the Reflect. I wanted some special defense to take advantage of the Assault Vest and screens, and I felt like these were pretty good numbers in general. So overall, just a bulky G-Max Centiskorch, able to survive multiple attacks, decent speed to outspeed what I really needed to do, and does a good amount of damage. Next Pokemon we have is the Light Clay Grimmsnarl with the Prankster ability with Spirit Break, Fake Tears, Light Screen, Reflect. Pretty much this Grimmsnarl, I've talked about this Grimmsnarl. I think I've used this multiple teams. It's just such a good Pokemon, of course, getting screens up. I think screens are fantastic with a Dynamax format, assuming you don't get crit. Grimmsnarl's a really good disruptor and is a pretty good typing as well. Light Clay, of course, to preserve the screens for as long as possible, especially since this team does some really solid residual damage with the G-Max Centiskorch. And yeah, the moveset, very simple. Spirit Break, of course, the dual screens, and then Fake Tear support for the Palkia and the Thunderous Variant. I've talked about Grimmsnarl a lot on this channel, so you could go check out the other team builders. But overall, this EV spread pretty much has remained the same for the most part. A bulky Grimmsnarl that is faster than like the Amoonguss, Timid Max Speed, just in case, as well as the Incineroars that aim to outspeed that one above. I felt like it was pretty good. And then just the general bulk, you don't really need any specific calcs because you usually have Light Screen or Reflect. It's the calcs are really not going to change anything, especially that I don't have Intimidate, so I can't live the Zacian Behemoth Blade after a Reflect anyway, so it doesn't really change anything. So overall, just good general bulk, a decent speedy Grimmsnarl, and does get up the screens up, and Fake Tear support, which is really nice for the team. So next up, we got the Choice Scarf Mamoswine with Oblivious for the ability with Icicle, Crash, High Horsepower, Stone Edge, and Ice Shard. So Mamoswine's a really good Pokemon. The Oblivious, of course, to ignore the Intimidates, is just really solid. Originally, Zacian had a Focus Sash on the Mamoswine, but I felt like I rather value the Choice Scarf. I want Outspeed Landis variant, especially before they Dynamax, and I think it's pretty important because they can Airstream and double up the Mamoswine, which is really bad if it's a Focus Sash set. I'd rather have that Choice Scarf. I think it's really nice. The other reason I want the Choice Scarf is because of Eternatus, which is also a big problem. I felt like I want strong hits and outspeeding the Eternatus, potentially just getting rid of it as soon as possible. And then of course Charizard is a little bit of a problem, so even with my team I don't exactly have the best Charizard answers, so I do have to risk some stuff against Charizard. I felt like the best way to do that potentially with Mamoswine was them not expecting the Choice Scarf and then the Stone Edge, and then hopefully landing the Stone Edge and then OHKOing the Charizard, which is not exactly the most solid plan, but it is an idea that can happen. So that is the reason why you have Stone Edge on the Mamoswine, Icicle, Crash, High Horsepower, Stone Edge, and Ice Shard. So originally on this team, I did have Icicle Crash, high horsepower, of course, because there is the Rillaboom with the grassy terrain, so it does weaken the power of Earthquake. Stone Edge, of course, for the Charizard, and an Ice Shard. So I had Bulldoze on the Mamoswine originally, and this was because I had Telepathy Palkia, and I was going to Bulldoze my team with the Palkia out, and then, you know, I'd have speed control basically in the form of Mamoswine, and could pick up some certain knockouts with Palkia, and then that was one of my ideas. But as I thought about it, like, Landis Variant was just such a Pokemon I felt like was way too difficult. I felt like, especially because if they get one Airstream up, my team's in a lot of trouble against Landers. So I felt like having backup Ice Shard once the Dynamax over can be a win con. So I ended up changing the Bulldoze to Ice Shard at the last minute. And then the EV spread, pretty simple. Max speed, of course, max attack, and 4 special defense. This just allows me to outspeed Pokemon that are annoying, like the Eternatus, which can be pretty difficult, and the Charizards, of course. And I just like having the Choice Scarf. I think it's a pretty good item, and I think Jolly was specifically for Eternatus, which was a little bit difficult and can help out against Zacians, which is really nice. Overall, do think Mamoswine hits pretty hard, and it's a great addition to the team. So next we have Life Orb Palkia with the Telepathy ability with Spacial Rend, Hydro Pump, Earth Power, Protect. I think Palkia is a fantastic Pokemon. It's typing. It makes it a really big threat, high special attack stat. It is a really big monster. I thought this Pokemon had the chance to pop off in the beginning of Series 11. Like, this Pokemon, I think, is a sleeper pick. It is a really strong Pokemon. I mean, there's multiple sets that can do really well with it. And yeah, I just think it's fantastic. Its coverage is great. Its offensive capabilities is great. It handles some of the matchups just in general. Overall, throughout the spread, it's just pretty solid. I felt like it's usually even or positive in most cases. I feel like Palkia is a great restricted Pokemon, so I did want to try it out with the Centiskorch with trapping, and yeah, I want to see how it went. So I went with the Life Orb Palkia, of course, for the damage output, especially with the Screen's Grimmsnarl with Fake Tears. Felt like it was the best item. And then Telepathy. So I had Telepathy mainly because of the Mamoswine. I had Earthquake at one point until I added the Rillaboom, and then I had the Bulldoze, which I did discuss. I had Bulldoze on the Mamoswine originally, changed it last minute, and then just forgot to change the Palkia back to Pressure. I don't think it really matters, and actually I might keep Telepathy for the main reason of, like, if they lead like something like a Landis Variant, for instance, and they're playing guessing games because maybe I'm a Trick Room Palkia. They might not know that I am a Life Orb Palkia. I could play that mind game because I don't reveal my speed immediately. Of course, this could backfire and they could be Scarflanders, and then I just don't know. So there's always that mind game. So I think both arguments are very solid. I don't think like the ability really matters too much because Palkia, I don't think Pressure is like that important of an ability on a Pokemon that's usually just going for offense most of the time. So I don't think it's really going to change much, but it is a concern. I've had some comments asking about why is Telepathy Palkia. The main reason was, again, the Bulldoze on the Mamoswine was on the original team, and I changed it last minute, and then I just didn't change the Palkia set because I forgot about it. But yeah, so Spacial Rend, Hydro Pump, Earth Power, Protect. Really good coverage, of course. Spacial Rend and Hydro Pump are the stabs. Really good damage output. Earth Power for the coverage, I felt like, against like Zacians and some other things. I like the boosting of the special defense as well. And the Protect to preserve the Palkia. I thought about running no Protect, but I think just Protect is too good, especially to scout for like Zacian Behemoth Blades, which is really important, I feel like, because apparently, I didn't know this calc when I first used the team, but apparently Player F can knock out a Dynamax Palkia if it's adamant. It's a roll, but apparently it can, so that was not something I was expecting. But and then the EV spread, just very simple. Max speed, of course, outspeed Landis Variant and become a really big threat. Speed type Charizard, all that good stuff. The max special attack for the damage output and 4 HP. Just in general, Palkia is a fantastic Pokemon. It hits really hard and dishes out a lot of damage. I really do love Palkia. It is one of my favorite restricteds because I like the concept of space as a kid. And yeah, it just is a good Pokemon, I feel like, and I think it deserves more love in this series. Next Pokemon we have is the Miracle Seed Gmax Rillaboom with the Grassy Surge, Woodhammer, Grassy Glide, Fake Out, and Protect. Rillaboom, of course, I don't think there's really much of an explanation. Good grass type. Grassy terrain is just really good in general, and yeah, it does really well against water types because of the fact that Grassy Glide and Woodhammer are really threatening in that grassy terrain. So Miracle Seed, of course, to boost up the Rillaboom. I had the Assault Vest on the Centiskorch. Didn't really feel like any other item was great. I know Zacian had a Grassy Seed Acrobatics. I wasn't a huge fan of the set, I feel like, so I rather just had Miracle Seed, especially since I feel like I'm switching out Rillaboom most of the time regardless. And recycling those fake outs and those grassy terrain turns, I felt like was pretty nice. So yeah, I do like the Miracle Seed for the extra damage, especially against like Lapras and Kyogre Grassy Glide. It's just a better calc, so I do really like that. Wood Hammer, Grassy Glide, Fake Out, Protect is pretty much the standard moveset here. I like having the Protect. It's just really good to preserve the Rillaboom. U-turn could have been an option, but I wasn't a huge fan. I like the Wood Hammer, of course, to pressure the Lapras, which I think is really important. The Grassy Glide, of course, is just a move you gotta have. Fake Out is just great, and then Protect to preserve the Rillaboom. The EV spread here, it is to outspeed Timid Max Speed Lapras, which I felt like was a pretty good mon to outspeed. And then I wanted Summon Bulk. I ended up going with a 201 HP stat. The reason I go with a 201 HP stat is because this lives like 4 Nightshade / Seismic Tosses from like Chansey, which ironically I played a few Chanseys with this team, and oh boy, it was actually pretty important. And of course that's outside of grassy terrain, but it can still be really nice. And then a 116 attack, that gives me a +1 attack stat. Felt like with the Miracle Seed I didn't have to go max attack, and then the rest remaining into bulk. Overall, very solid Rillaboom. It does the job that it needs to do, handles the bulky waters. Grassy terrain and Fake Out is just really nice, and it does a good amount of damage. Last Pokemon on the team, Choice Specs Thunder's Fairing with the Volt Absorber ability with Thunderbolt, Weather Ball, Dark Pulse, and Volt Switch. So this is the Pokemon that I would say this is the mon that you could definitely change on the team the most. I just wasn't sure what I wanted to use because I knew I needed some kind of fake tiers user, and every single special attacker in this format that has a decent speed is like either just matches another type that I really don't like on the team, or just doesn't really fulfill the role that I needed to do. So I felt like Choice Specs Thunder's Fairing. I like the Zapdos as well. The flying and electric coverage I felt like was pretty solid, and I like the Thunder's Fairing just as another way to help against Eleky stuff, and I felt like that was pretty nice. Gave me a steel resist for Zacian as well, which I just felt like was pretty good. And yeah, I just felt like Thunder's Fairing was the best pick out of the mons that I was just looking at. So I had the Choice Specs Thunder's Fairing because I felt like over Zapdos, I felt like it was better because of Volt Absorb, which was better against Eleky. But I also liked it because I felt like Zapdos just is better as a Dynamax Pokemon, and even with the fake tier support, Zapdos will probably miss some knockouts if I am not offensive. I guess I could have went Choice Specs Zapdos, but I felt the Volt Absorb just really pushed it. So I liked the Thunder's Fairing, especially with the speed tier. I like having the speed tier because just outspeeding Charizard by 1 point can be absolutely huge. So I have the Thunderbolt, Weather Ball, Dark Pulse, Volt Switch. Really, this moveset I think could change immensely. I don't think it's necessary. I actually had Thunder when I was playing with this Thunder's Fairing set because I forgot to change it from Thunder to Thunderbolt, because the last time I used this Thunder's Fairing team was with a Rain team with Thunder. So yeah, definitely Thunderbolt over Thunder. You can get Rain over Palkia, but it's just not really going to be like that much of a situation. I feel like that's worth it. So yeah, Thunderbolt for sure. Weather Ball was in case I brought Thunder's Fairing to Sun teams. I felt like you could Weather Ball their Venusaur, maybe catch them by surprise, and I felt like, you know, that might actually be worth it, so I kept Weather Ball. Dark Pulse, I felt like not really that solid of a move, but I just felt like, you know, maybe something like against a Calyrex Shadow Rider with a light screen up, maybe that could do something. I think Sludge Bomb might have actually been preferred because I feel like my best way to handle opposing Rillabooms is usually just Centiskorch. Otherwise, I don't have the best answer. So I think Sludge Bomb might be better here, but I'm not too sure. I think it came out really rare regardless, and I just barely brought Thunderous, so I couldn't really say for certain. And then of course Volt Switch for momentum, especially with the Grimmsnarl pairing with screens. I can Volt Switch in to the threat like the Centiskorch or the Palkia and really dish out the damage. So EV spread here, I went with max speed of course on the Thunderous because it does allow me to outspeed Charizard, which I felt like was pretty good. I wanted a little bit of bulk. I just went with the 36 HP because it gives me a 159 stat, which is like a pretty nice number because it just is like -1 of its number divisible by 16. That allows me to take less from like Sandstorm, Hail, stuff like that. And then I just put the rest in special attack. I wasn't sure. I thought about bulky Thunderous Fairing because of the fact that I had fake tier support as well once again. But I felt like, you know, I'm not sure how often that's going to be accomplished, and I feel like maybe I'll miss some knockouts because of how Dynamax works. So I felt like with the Choice Specs Thunderous, I'd rather be trying to ensure I get the KOs most of the time. So I just ended up going with the near max special attack. I felt like with the fake tiers was more worth it. So yeah, that is the Thunderous Fairing set. Don't know if it's the best member for the team. I think this slot that can be most explored with on the team, but overall did the job when I needed to do when I brought it a few rare times. And yeah, that is the team. So how do you use the team and what are the most common leads with it? I would say this team has 2 different modes. There's the Grimmsnarl Palkia offense mode, of course, with the screens and just fake tier stuff with a max Palkia. dish out a bunch of damage so the back Pokemon can usually just pick up the knockouts that Palkia have already weakened the opponent's team. And it's really strong to fake tears plus the max move Palkia strategy. It just does so much damage and can really easily pick up knockouts because Palkia hits for a lot of different Pokemon in the current format. So that is one way to use the team. The other way to use the team is usually just like trying to set up screens with Grimmsnarl and trying to trap Pokemon or do some residual damage using the Gmax Centiskorch-Gmax move, and then trying to set up for late game cleanups with the Palkia, the Rillaboom-Mamoswine once they're trapped in. Maybe their speed is lowered through the max strike using the Giga Impact, and then you're able to usually clean up with a higher Pokemon count. So the common leads, I would say Grimmsnarl is a very common lead, usually with Palkia or Centiskorch. As mentioned before, it's pretty good for the strategies with the fake tears and the screens for setting up both of these Pokemon. I also really like Grimmsnarl plus stuff like Rillaboom for fake out support, or Mamoswine I think is pretty solid because Grimmsnarl plus Mamoswine is a decent mode if you're trying to open up the doors for Centiskorch. I don't think it's a bad play at all. You could set up the screens, not worry about Gmax Centiskorch being super frail, and usually you're able to get 2 screens up, then get Centiskorch in, which is really nice, and Mamoswine's able to open the doors for that Centiskorch win. And then, of course, there are some other leads. Rillaboom, of course, with Fake Out. Can lead with anything as well with the Palkia, with the Centiskorch or Mamoswine. It's not a bad effective play. You can Fake Out and get some nice chip damage or set up with a max move. It's pretty strong. That's what I would say the most common leads are. You could also lead a Mamoswine plus Palkia, which I have found quite a bit, and it's a good offensive lead, especially against teams that don't really do well against a Mamoswine, and Palkia able to clean up some stuff that Mamoswine might not appreciate. Sometimes I let Thundurus, but I think usually I would keep Thundurus mostly in the back, but it is an option in case you want to Volt Switch immediately. For instance, like a Grimmsnarl plus a Thundurus lead, and you would Volt Switch right away, set up a screen, and prepare for the Pokemon in the back. And that is the show. I hope you all enjoyed the thought process, what went behind the Gmax Centiskorch team. If you did, please leave a like down below, leave a comment down below. It really does help me out. If you haven't checked out the episodes with this team, make sure you go check them out. And make sure you try out the team with the rental code on your screen. You have 2 weeks to grab the team before it expires, but of course there is a pay spin available in the description down below. But thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day, people, and until we bow again, I'll catch y'all later.